Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Thomas Pollock from Profile Tree, and here is another tutorial on short film editing in Premiere Pro. In the last episode we looked at some of the basic principles of how to use Premiere, and we looked at some of the importing settings and the sequence settings, but here I'm going to look into the menus and the preferences that you can set and go a little more into what's in these workspaces. And yeah, just going to cover more of the settings because I kind of skipped over the sequence settings whenever you make a new timeline, so I'll get into that. So first off, I guess I can just show you what's in every single one of these drop down menus. So in File, you have the ability to go create your new project, create a new sequence, Control-N, create a new bin, it's also a shortcut for that, then create an adjustment layer, a Photoshop layer, a legacy title, bars and tones, captions, and all that sort of thing. We'll get into all those later too. You're able to open your projects and stuff here. You're able to export from here. That's where you can render. Again, that'll be much later on, but that's how you can render. Then you've got Project Manager. Don't worry about that. But one of the menus that we need to look at is Project Settings again. And I won't get into depth about it, but you've got your scratch disks and your ingest settings. This is usually when you're editing with proxies. But we'll not look at that yet. That'll be for another episode. And scratch disks, basically a scratch disk is... all editors use a scratch disk, and this is essentially just to have a folder where your footage is coming from. But again, we can probably go into that later too. We don't really need to know that right now, but everything's okay there. As I said last time, you can choose to have your video playback rendering through your graphics card or the CPU. Under Edit, we've got the Undo and Redo. Also has, you can see the keyboard shortcuts right next to it. And then here you have preferences. And let's have a look into these menus just so you can get an idea of what you can do to customize and change things in Premiere. So in general, you've got a couple of different settings here, and this just affects how bins open. So if you want to have it open in a new tab or the same place or in a new window, you can set it to that. So I'll give you an example. So if open in a new window, you see the bin opened in a new window. But then if I hit open in place, it'll open right there. And that's usually quite convenient because it means you're not having all these windows pop up. So I will keep it like that for now to show you. And then in appearance, this is where you can make it bright or dark. You can change the colors, the brightness and darkness of the buttons. You can just keep that. In audio, don't need to look at that. You've got all these different settings here. Audio hardware, that's just to choose your input, for your speakers, or if you're recording audio or something, you choose which input you want to record audio. Autosave, you can set that to create many different versions as you're going along. I've set it to 25, which is quite a lot, and I have it save every 5 minutes. You can have it save every 10 minutes, which is more realistic, but I do 5 minutes. Most people would, have it around that anyway, so it's up to yourself. And then you can just capture and control surface, device control, graphics. Then you have label colors. This allows you to set, so you can change these. So say you wanted red in here, you can change that and make custom colors, and that comes in handy later whenever you've got lots of markers and stuff like that, and also being able to change the colors of tracks. Get into that pretty soon too. So yeah, label defaults is the colors of the default content. So when you have stuff in your bin, I'll show you that pretty soon too. You can change the color of the little icon next to it, and this might be useful to you at some point if you're trying to categorize things. But yeah, that sets a default for the labels. Then in media, you've got media time base, keep it at 25. Time code, use media source. Frame count, keep it at 0. Media cache, here you can set how much cache information the program keeps, and that's essentially, it's like that with browsers. It essentially creates temporary files so that it can load much quicker when you're accessing the data in your editor. And then on memory, you're able to affect how much of your RAM, your random access memory, which I'm sure you're aware of. So there's 16 gigabytes of RAM on this computer, and I have set it so 11 gigabytes is dedicated and available for Premiere. And you can set it reserved for other applications. So if you set that to 6, it means 6 gigabytes will be left over for other programs that you're using at the minute. Playback, you can just ignore that. I never touch these settings. A lot of these you don't need to really change. I think it's good to just keep them where they are. But timeline's an important one. You've got this setting here, timeline playback, auto scrolling, page scroll, no scroll, and I'll show you what that does right now. So if we set it to no scroll, what you're going to see happening is, if I go in and play something, so if I play this, it goes off frame, and when I hit stop, it takes me to where the scrubber, the arrow is. But if I change that to page scroll, it will follow it. Simple as that. And then if you do smooth scroll, it'll go along with it. Then up here you also have the default durations of transitions and still images. So say you wanted every image that you import into your timeline to be 1 second long, simply change it to 1 second. You can also change it by frames if you're doing something like an animation. And then also you've got the same for video and audio transitions, the default length that you wish for them to be. And that's all quite straightforward, and all these are self-explanatory. Don't need to get into all those, but that is the preferences. That is an overview of the preferences in your editor. And we can just go ahead and hit OK. So now we can talk about the different ways you can view things, and we'll look at these different menus and stuff here. So this is your project menu, which we've looked at before. Now I'm using a short film of mine as an example, just to give you an idea of stuff. This isn't the whole thing. I've just set it in as an example to say this is footage that you have. As you can see, we talked about a string out last time. I've created a string out for this, and all my folders and bins are here for the footage and the audio. Now, you're able, down here you can change the view of your, you can set so you can have icons and you can change the size by doing that, or you can have a drop down menu in a list like this. This is sometimes neater, but if you're wanting to go through and look at footage, say, you're able to do that and actually preview the footage like that. You can also hit start and play the same way you can your timeline with the video. You can see it moving around there. And you can go into the list mode, and you'll see we talked about those different colors sitting next to little labels. You can change the labels if you wish. If you were, say, going to categorize, it is helpful down the line for markers and all that sort of things. To say, I selected these clips because for certain reasons, say the audio was bad, or I really like these ones. You could put a label on it and make it different from the others. Simple as that. So yeah, that can be quite useful. So what else can you do? You can right click and you get all your different settings. You can choose before putting it into your timeline, you can change the audio gain, which is quite straightforward. We'll get into more complicated stuff about audio editing. And you can also right click and hit speed duration to change the length. So if you hit 50%, it's going to play at 50% speed. You can choose to reverse it. Yeah, that's quite straightforward also. What other settings have we got here? Edit subclip, make subclip. Can get into that later as well. Essentially, that means you can take a selection and then make another clip out of it as a separate clip within your project managing sequence and space in your bins. Yeah, you can rename it, add a subclip label, as I said. So that's the settings that you have there. And there's different ways to import, as we discussed. You know, you can double click in the space, select files. You can go up to File, Import, or you can drag and drop. And then you've also have the ability in this menu to browse media and bring stuff in. And you can bring that in. You can drag that into here if you want to put it into a certain folder. Simple as that. Or you can right-click, Import. So yeah, that lets you go through all the hard drives that you have. Libraries we can ignore, info we can ignore. Then we have the effects drop-down menu, and here you have presets that are built into Premiere. There's different settings for blurring, bevel edges. Yeah, so different effects that you can put on, and there's limitary presets, which is a lot of color correction presets that you can see, and you can drag that on. And you can just drag these in, and you can see it's affecting my image, but we can get more into color grading and more effects later. So yeah, that's your drop-down menu, and you've got your audio effects, transitions, video effects, transitions, and then up here you have your search bar if there's anything in particular you're looking for. And that goes for the same in where your bins are. If there's a certain file you're looking for, a certain number, it'll bring them up. Then in markers, this is very, very helpful as well. I can show you later down the line how you could use this as an effective workflow whilst you're editing your short film. So say I place a marker in my timeline. For instance, let's say I'm just going to put one, I don't know, at the start of this scene. I hit M. Now that's created a marker, and then say I create another one. This means now what I can do is I go in the markers. If I click on this, it'll take me right to where it is on the timeline, and you're able to change colors. So say you want to have a comment like something you didn't like about it, overexposed, or something like that, or start here, something like that. Anything at all for editorial notes that you want to show the director or just for yourself, anything like that. So this could be a very effective way to place markers. And you can also place markers within the clip. As you can see, this put it on the timeline itself in the sequence. So it's a sequence marker. If you click on if your clip is selected and it's highlighted, if you hit M, you'll see that it actually made a marker within the clip. Whenever I click on it, it brings up a different set of markers. But if I click out, it brings up the other two markers that are on my sequence. So that can be used quite effectively for notes. Then in history, we can ignore that too. It just shows you what you have been doing. So if I hit Control-Z, it'll take away what I've done, things like that. Simple as that. So another thing we could take a look at is the different work layouts that we have. At the minute I'm in editing, which is a pretty good overall one to be using at all times. We have assembly. You'll see what that does. That's if you're looking through your footage. Usually that is a layout that it's suggesting that you can use. So as you can see, it's changed the positions of things. In editing, it lets me have the source monitor and the effect controls. Effect controls I'll show you really briefly while I'm here. Effect controls is where you can change the scale of your image, the position of your image. You can rotate it. You can change the opacity, the blending, a bit like Photoshop. And then also you're able to place masks, but we'll get into that in another episode, in another tutorial. Then there's audio clip mixer. That's another menu. Metadata. Don't worry about that for now. But that brings up your mixer. So with the editing in Workspaces, it's quite handy. You've got your timeline here, stuff here. Color correction is a very, very important one. It's a very helpful one too if you're doing a quick color correction. And you can use this thing called Lumetri Color that comes up on the right of the screen. What you've got here is all different settings to change everything, and I'll get in depth about that. So you've got basic correction, creative. You can change your color curves, color wheels. Everything is here that you would pretty much need for a basic color correction. Then if we click on effects, this is a preset for how we can grab effects. Down here, see the effects is now on the right side of the screen, but Lumetri Color also comes up when doing effects. So it's almost this is also handy for color grading towards the end of your film edit. The effects here, as you can see, simple as that. Say I want to place brightness contrast, I can drag that onto the clip, I can drag it over to here, or I can just double click so long as my clip is highlighted. Simple as that. And then we also have audio, which is one that you would use obviously to start doing your sound effects and your ambience and customizing your dialogue. What you can see here is presets and stuff like that. And then it brings up all your mixers, so that's for each audio track. So you're able to change the gain, the volume on each track. You can mute, you can solo them. I've soloed where my dialogue is here. Simple as that. And then we have graphics, which is usually for titles or animations that you want to import from other programs or anything like that. So over here, we could see that I can bring up certain kind of graphics, text and stuff like that. Essential Graphics has a lot of different presets available. And there's a way you can make your own and customize and An important thing to know is how to reset these if anything goes wrong. If you changed it and you want to make sure it goes back to the same way it was, just set the reset the layout save. So if I put that there and I hit this, it goes back to the way it was originally. And if I want to, you should probably never save as overwrite the presets. If you want to make a new one, you can right click and save as a new workspace and then name it. And you can also edit workspaces here, but you don't need to bother with that. So yeah, that's quite simple. That is how you can play around with the layouts. You can make something that works for yourself and move things around. And as I said, you're able to change the windows and do stuff like that. In the next episode, we will look into how to use your timeline more effectively and look into the short film workflow. And so yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.